Have you ever put something on and immediately felt more grounded, more confident, or more overstimulated and wondered, what the heck? Welcome back to Be Well Besties, the podcast where we talk about caring for our brains and our well-being in real life, not just in theory. Getting dressed is something most of us do on autopilot or with a lot of unspoken rules and expectations. Lately, there's been buzz around dopamine dressing, but focusing only on trends or feel-good colors can skip over what's actually happening beneath the surface in our brains and our nervous systems. Today's episode is a deeper dive into how clothing, sensory input, and personal preferences connect to brain health. When we understand how things like texture, weight, color, and fit affect our nervous system, getting dressed becomes a simple, accessible tool for regulation, self-trust, and support. So let's move beyond the trend, get a little bit nerdy in the best way, and explore how to use what's already in our closets to support the mood we want to have.
Else that's me. I'm unbreakable, unstoppable.
All right, friends. I know Bailey's excited to get a little nerdy about things. That's her happy place.
Always.
Before we jump in, let's do our regular self-check-in. Just a reminder that it is at 0 to 5 scale, where 0 is where we're calm and at peace, feeling good, and 5 is where we're maybe in crisis and need a little bit of extra support. How are we feeling?
Yeah, I think I'm at a 2. It's probably a little higher than I normally am. Just end of the week, but still lots of things on the plate. And yeah, 2.
I'm going to put myself at like a 0.5 this morning. Not to be nerdy or cheesy, or maybe to be a little nerdy and cheesy. The talk of dopamine dressing actually has me super excited and feeling pretty primed for this conversation.
I love that. And again, decimals fully encouraged here. We are we don't have to be linear. I am probably not a 1, which is kind of my baseline, my norm. Like Nia said, it's been a little bit of a busy week, but I'm headed for vacation. So right. we're doing good. And yes, I am so excited to talk about this topic of dopamine dressing. Selfishly, it is something I've been practicing for probably the last couple of years. And it's made this huge difference in my confidence, in my presence, in the way I show up for things. So I'm so excited to dive in. Now, dopamine dressing is a trend that has been happening and taking over social media for the last couple of years. And the aesthetic is very much mine. It's bright colors and bold patterns and fun textures. But I think dopamine dressing is beyond that, right? It's not just the trend, but it is dressing in a way that makes you feel good. So I'm interested in, what are your dopamine dressing habits?
Ooh, okay. So for me, it goes beyond just look aesthetic. And yes, it is comfort, but I love good conversation pieces. I'm a person who loves an organization that does the like buy one, gift one, where they give something to somebody in need. Or I really value sustainability. So I love organizations that are putting products out there that are sustainable for the environment. I really love supporting local artists, like at these lovely little earrings. So anything that really gives an opportunity for connection with people, which y'all, that's my thing, is or a good talking point or something that I love. I make my own clothes sometimes. I thrift clothes. So any of those pieces that if somebody compliments, I can be like, actually, did you know I get these earrings for at a local artist, and this is where you can find them. And I just love those pieces. But beyond that, beyond the connection piece from a like sort of more sensory space, has to be comfortable and practical. We kind of joked around earlier that if the iron has to come out, it's not for me.
Yeah,
like
100%.
I am a no fuss kind of person. I need to be able to throw it on my body and move on. I love comfort with a pop of fancy, like a skirt with a t-shirt and sneakers. So those are kind of the spaces where I feel most comfortable and most myself, I think.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's maybe it's almost things that are out of the ordinary. So I would lean towards the brighter colors. I think Shelby and I kind of go for the brighter colors, and Bailey's more kind of earth tones. But I think things that pop, or even things that have interesting shapes, or I think Shelby and I also have ones that have like big flowers that stick off, or adding pieces to it, maybe pieces that I have that are vintage, so pins or something from a family member, and just adding that to the whole outfit, combining jeans with a blazer, or leggings with something oversized. And I think it's always fun too, because if someone were to notice, they would notice the color. They would say, "Oh my gosh, that blazer, it's so bright." And I said, "Yeah, isn't it?" I said something like, "It's fun. It's fun to add just a little bit of pop, right? A little bit of pop of color for your day." And they're like, "Yes," as they walk on by. So.
Yeah.
Oh, and in general, sorry, Shelby.
No, please go ahead.
In general, the t-shirt, jeans, a blazer, and kicks is like the Be Well uniform.
That's right.
We joke around that it's like if we're going out on the town and we're there as a team, we're like, all right, Be Well uniform. That's okay. We're good, and that's the understanding.
I also love that Bailey just threw the very millennial kicks into the conversation.
Y'all, excuse me, my millennials showing.
I love that. So what I'm hearing is that it is all preferences, and preferences matter, right? Because preferences really link to our identity, and that is so important. Feeling like yourself, dressing like yourself really allows you to show up as a whole human, which is so important. Bailey, can you, our resident brain science nerd, can you tell us a little bit about what is going on in our brains when that old adage, look good, feel good, what's happening when we really are like feeling an outfit and feel more confident or more comfortable or more whatever we want to feel?
Well, there's not a lot of research specifically about dopamine dressing. And there's questions even about whether dopamine is the chemical or the only chemical that is being produced when we're dressing to feel good, right? So, because there's lots of feel-good hormones. There's oxytocin and serotonin.
Yes, oxytocin dressing does not sound as fun.
Not nearly as fun. We love an alliteration. Yes. So dopamine dressing just kind of like rolls off the tongue, right? I would say for me, probably it's more likely serotonin dressing because I'm looking for the connection, right? So all of that to be said, there's not a lot of research, but if it feels good, like that's what we do. Now, the cool thing, there is research on this psychological phenomenon called enclothed cognition. And that is all about how what we wear and put on our bodies changes the way we feel, think, behave, and our perception of the world. And we can kind of assign different meanings to all different kinds of clothing. So the phrase enclothed cognition originated and was coined by Adam and Galinsky in 2012. And they did this a series of really cool research studies where they had a control group, and then, of course, the group that was a variable. And they gave them lab coats and had them do an assignment. So it was a focused attention. And what they found is the folks that wore the doctor's lab coats improved and performed better on those tests. Well, they did a follow-up to say, like, okay, is this just because they have this extra thing on? And the second study was they had this exact same lab coat, and they had 3 groups this time. They had the control group that wore no lab coats. They had the group that they said, okay, this is a doctor's lab coat. And then they told a third group, this is a painter's coat. And what happened was substantially the individuals who were told that they were doctor's lab coats again performed better because they had this idea or the theory is that there is this idea that I'm wearing this very formal official thing, I'm going to perform better and I'm going to pay better attention. So what that can kind of point to, or the research sort of starts to suss out, is that when we have a certain perception of a type of clothing, that it can actually improve our performance. It can make us feel more confident in ourselves. But I would argue to say that could be anything. So if mine is, I feel more confident and like I perform better in yoga tights and a t-shirt, then that is my doctor's coat, right? My lab coat. And then there's not research to suss that part out yet. But that's kind of that's sort of what I'm assigning to it, is if we add the context to it, it can be the thing that makes us perform better. If that's a power blazer, or if that is your favorite pair of kicks, or if that is, a bright color, whatever that might be.
Thank you for giving me language to this phenomenon that I have recently realized within myself. Y'all, I am 31 years old, and I am just realizing this, that if I get home and I immediately put on my comfy, cozy house clothes, right? I'm done for the day.
Yeah.
I am not doing chores. I'm not doing anything that I am assigning as work. But if I get home and I leave my work clothes on, I am totally motivated to do my dishes and the laundry and vacuum the floor. And I did not have language to put to it until now. This weird thing that's happening.
Well, and for me, like home Bailey, the second I get home, I'm like, get me out of these clothes. Like home Bailey needs to feel comfortable and cozy in order to be able to get those things done. Like I will get so distracted and like, why am I still wearing this blazer when I'm not at work? That it's the first thing that has to happen for me to be able to focus on the other things that need to happen in my home.
Yeah. So it's all preferences, right? I am super interested in how clothing can tie to like our sensory input. Because if I put on an itchy wool blazer, I am getting nothing done that day because I am only concerned about how uncomfortable I am.
Yeah.
What's happening in our bodies and our brains when we're uncomfortable or we are comfortable.
Well, I think it really does lean into, again, those preferences. I mean, we probably have things in our houses, in our closets that we picked on purpose. You know, maybe sometimes we did first go for that bright color or that earthy color. But if we think about it, we're probably reaching for those same things that are the most comfy. Like for me, I have a pair of, they are dress pants, but they are really big and kind of flowy. And now that we're talking about it, I think I picked those mainly on Monday mornings, right? To start the week off at work, still looking sharp, but being really comfortable. You know, so I think, you're right, if we are distracted by anything, right, we have enough distraction already going on through all the different things that are on our to-do lists and the things that we want to get done. I think it is true if we had on something that was not fitting well, or that, like you said, the fabric that didn't fit well, or something that was just not tight, it makes you kind of feel off, right?
Our brains are already overwhelmed with all of the sensory inputs, so our clothing is just an additional thing, but it is something we can control, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And some of us have higher sensory processing things or needs or sensitivities than others, and just being aware of that. Like, no matter how trendy a wool blazer is, if it makes you feel super uncomfortable, is that something you want to wear on your body for 8 hours a day? Like, and I probably, when I was younger, I would have been like, well, I'm just going to kind of push through this feeling of discomfort because it's trendy and it looks cute. But nowadays, I'm just like, no, if it doesn't feel good, I'm just not going to put it on my body.
Yeah. Let's dig in to the trend thing a little bit. We live in a world where trends change so quickly, but also if you're not trendy or you're not following the latest trend, it is really easy to feel excluded, which is something our brains don't like, right?
No. Well, and this is the other space that research kind of actually looks at clothing and in groups and out groups. So we've talked about a lot. We survive best in healthy, healing connection with other humans. And when we feel like we're on this sort of social edge that can put our brains into survival states because we're excluded. We're on the outskirts, right? So there's research studies on what like uniforms do for social cognition and social behavior and how we feel part of the in-group and what it feels like if we don't show up in the right. And I think there's probably many of us that have the experience where you are like, I'm feeling confident in this outfit, and you show up to the thing, whether that be like, I can think of a time where I showed up to a work presentation and I'm like, I'm going to wear the normal things that I wear to present. I've got my blazer on. I had not like fancy pants on, but dress pants. I had flats on, and I walked in and it was not the vibe and not the audience. And I immediately was just like, all my confidence just got drained because everybody else is in like t-shirts and work boots and Levi's or Wranglers. And I was like, I stick out like a sore thumb. And so that's an example of a time where our clothing can kind of put us on, or we perceive that our clothing puts us on the social outskirts and can feel very uncomfortable and very threatening. And I think there's probably lots of people who have had an experience like that in
100%.
your life where you didn't get the memo on what you're supposed to dress up as, and you walk in and you're like,
100%.
So
mine's a little different. So there was a time I didn't get the memo, and there was a certain event I went to, and it was a color theme. and asking around. And my lovely friend that invited me knows, of course, that we're all individuals and everybody's going to have kind of different outfits on anyway. So I put on a hot pink. What do you know? A hot pink flowy dress. And of course, I'd taken time to get ready. And, this was a dressy event. And I just felt really good. I get there, and I would say 98% of the other people had on the other color. And I thought, well, look at that. So to me, it was funny. And to me, like even later, I don't know that I noticed it so much. It didn't bother me because I was still appropriate for the event, right? I had prepared to go this dressy event. And later, when I was showing somebody the picture, they're like, "Oh, well, look at you standing out as with a bright peony in a sea of whatever." I'm like, what do you know?
A sea of leaves.
What do you know?
In a sea of leaves, yes.
Well, and I also think about what clothing communicates in other kind of settings, right? So if we go to see our favorite, I love baseball. We're a big baseball family. If I go to a baseball game and see other people wearing my team, automatically I know that yes, that's community. Mm-hmm. That communicates we're rooting for the same thing. Mm-hmm. And we use clothing to communicate that all the time in different ways.
Yeah, it's a visual reminder.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
There are multiple ways I want to take this. But I think I'm interested, and I think our besties might be interested in how can we stay true to ourselves, stay true to our identity and our preferences when we are in spaces where there are perceived dress codes, or there are actual written dress codes, or there is a perceived norm. So I want your hacks on how you stay you, even when you're in spaces where there is an expected norm that is maybe not quite fitting with you.
Well, I think it's just adding the you-ness to it. So maybe it is, if we talk about a time, maybe a time that I'm dressing up and wearing a suit. Let's just go for maybe I celebrate Christmas, so maybe I have on a suit, but I want to kind of zhuzh it up. So I would add, I happen to have some vintage brooches, and the ones I'm thinking of right now that come to mind because we're talking about kind of colors and that dopamine. I'm specifically reaching for my ones that are kind of bright colors, and I put them in kind of a big collage on my side. And I think that could be the same thing too. If it's a maybe working in the office, there's certain things that a lot of offices need us to wear between safety and just kind of policy. But I've seen even people that even on their badge reel, there's actually a company. I should have looked this company up, but they've made the little doodads that you put on top of the badge reel. So people just really. Each day, they're so excited to get to work because now I get to match even my little badge reel to my outfit, or just have that little piece that shows
fun,
who you are.
Right?
Exactly.
Well, and I think for me, when I was in grad school, I worked for a company where we had a very tight dress code, and it was like a black polo or collared shirt, black pants, black shoes. Like that was the dress code. And I don't love the way regular polos fit. So I intentionally looked for black polos that were either the athletic fabric or that have a particular shape, because I don't like the way the other ones feel or look on my body. And so I think there are, even if we have to stay within the realms of a dress code, we can still find ways to make it comfortable and make us feel as confident as possible in whatever that is.
Yep.
And that's all supporting our nervous system, right? One of my favorite hacks is something you can use even if you're in a uniform, right? If I need extra comfort, or it's a day where I know I'm going to be overstimulated, I wear fuzzy socks. Nobody has to know, right? Wear your cozy socks.
I love this because I'm also a person, my feet are perpetually cold. So I'm like, give me all the fuzzy sock hacks, please.
Bonus.
Well, and they still come in fun colors too, right?
Yeah.
You can have every color under the rainbow for the fuzzy socks.
And I've seen lots of people do this. So people who are wearing suit pants where they're very formal or dressed up, and then they have fun socks underneath as a kind of a personal touch, or even, again, another talking piece. We were at a conference recently and we were talking to somebody and he was like, yeah, look at my socks. And it's they're conversation starters. So there are little ways that we can kind of integrate who we are in those spaces and still feel like ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so important to feel like we are expressing our identity in spaces. And we are not saying by any means to go out and buy a whole new closet
Oh, no.
to chase trends or anything like that, right?
No.
We are just saying if you put a little intentionality into getting dressed and you notice your preferences, then things can be, like I said, you can use getting dressed as a support for every day. And it can be a little scary. It can be a little scary to wear something that is maybe outside of the norm or outside of the perceived norm. But if it helps support you, that's all that matters, right?
That's right.
And I think the big thing is knowing what our preference, like until
100%.
you brought this to my attention, I was like, I don't know what my preference. I have preferences and I choose them instinctively. Like I love the earth tones that remind me of nature, which is one of like my safe places. But I've not intentionally been like, oh, I will only choose earth tones because it makes me feel this way. So even just bringing attention to what are your preferences, what textures do you like, what fabrics do you like, what colors do you feel most comfortable in is a kind of unique way to start.
I love that. Well, the good news is our next episode is exactly that. It's preferences. So besties, if you will join us in our next episode, we're going to explore what it means to dress for the mood you want using the things you already have in your closet. We'll see you then.
else that's me.